thank you everyone for joining us today. We're here to talk about the Inflation Reduction Act grant funds trees for South Carolina. And if we can go to the next slide. All right, all attendees will be muted. If you have a question, please use the question box. So that's that little box in the top right corner with the question. Click there and type a question at any time during the webinar. If we can answer it live, we will. If not, we will wait until the end to answer the question. You'll also have a chance at the very end to actually verbally ask your question if you're like me and you hate typing. Next slide. And then Francis Waite with the Urban and Community Forestry Program just gave us a brief introduction. They are the supporter of this program. They obtained the funds from the U.S. Forest Service and provided a grant to the Green Infrastructure Center to do this work. But we're very pleased to be able to take advantage of this federal funding to help the trees and the people of South Carolina. Next slide.
Great. Well, thank you, Karen. So we're the Green Infrastructure Center. If you're not familiar with who we are, we're a nonprofit organization. We help communities manage their green infrastructure assets to help maximize kind of the ecology, culture, and economy that those provide to communities. We provide this through a variety of technical assistances like mapping land cover and tree canopy. We also help create strategic green infrastructure and canopy plans for communities. And we share this information and what we've learned by working with different communities through writing, teaching, and training. And you can find out more information and a lot of free publications through this link here at gicinc.org, or you can find additional publications through the South Carolina Forestry Commission's website. So I wanted to take a moment to introduce our South Carolina team that is going to be providing the support for the Trees4SC program. We have Marcia Potter. She is our community forestry planner. There is her contact information as well. If you have additional questions, she or our next staff member are happy to take any additional questions or provide some more context about this program. We also have Tom Knowles. He is our community forester, and there's his contact information there. The two of them are going to be the main providers of this assistance for communities throughout South Carolina and bring a incredible depth of knowledge around trees and urban forestry to communities. So we're really glad to have them on the team, and they're going to be providing a lot of excellent assistance for communities across South Carolina. So as I think Francis and Karen mentioned, this funding source is thanks from the USDA Forest Service through the Inflation Reduction Act, through the South Carolina Forestry Commission. So this is the reason why we're able to provide these services to South Carolina communities, and we really thank them for their support, financial support, to be able to provide these services. So what is Trees4SC? As I think Karen mentioned before we had some technical difficulties, this is our second round of providing a comprehensive assistance for communities who qualify as disadvantaged using the Climate and Economic Justice Screening Tool. And I'll talk a little bit more about that Climate and Economic Justice Screening Tool here on the next slide. But what this program is providing a full suite of technical assistance for a city or town within South Carolina. It's in two different kind of phases of work. The first is really doing a lot of citywide technical assistance, such as mapping urban tree canopy, determining planting plans, reviewing a community's tree codes, policies, and practices, and then creating kind of that strategic tree canopy plan that's going to inform the second phase of the program, which is getting into implementation. So in that second phase, GIC staff and the Forestry Commission will be engaging the community in local projects at the neighborhood scale. So engaging the community in neighborhoods, those disadvantaged neighborhoods, and working on specific projects of interest for those community members. And those can be anything from redesigning a city park or identifying tree plantings that are appropriate and can fit within their neighborhood to provide those ecosystem services that we all know trees provide for our communities. We'll also be able to help build some stewardship capacity within a community, so those residents will be able to help support that ongoing tree care and maintenance that's required for a healthy urban forest. So who can apply? So this is our second round. There are some eligibility requirements. So communities must be either South Carolina cities and towns with a population of 5,000 or more. So unfortunately, counties are not eligible to apply for this program, or they can be a state or federally recognized tribe. So they must first meet one of those two criteria, and an additional criteria is the communities must have at least one disadvantaged census tract in their jurisdictional boundary. And you can find out whether or not you have one of these tracts within your jurisdictional boundary by clicking on this link here. This will take you to the White House's Climate and Economic Justice Screening Tool. This is a platform that it pulls all different kinds of data across multiple federal agencies to help identify what they call disadvantaged neighborhoods within communities across the entire United States. Now, you may be saying, oh, well, I don't meet either one of these criteria. Don't fret, there are other opportunities for technical assistance for communities that don't meet these criteria, or if you do meet these criteria and let's say you are not chosen as one of the next communities in the IRA program, the South Carolina Forestry Commission and the Green Infrastructure Center run a separate technical assistance program called Tech Support. That application period will open up in October of this year for the next round. That is open for counties and municipalities and tribes. And there is no requirement that you have any of these disadvantaged census tracts to be able to apply for that program. And that is a technical assistance program that provides kind of an a la carte of the different types of technical assistance, such as canopy mapping, codes audit, ecosystem services modeling, etc., that you would get individually or request individually rather than getting this full suite under the IRA program. So keep an eye out for that application period. We will do an additional informational webinar in October talking about that program and how you can apply. So if you click on that link, it's again here at the top of this slide. It will take you to this portal here. This is the Climate Economic Justice Screening Tool. You can see here there is a inset map that you can zoom in and out of. We've got here zoomed in kind of to the South Carolina region. If your community has any of these disadvantaged tracts, they will show up in purple or this kind of light blue that you see in this screenshot here. So you can pan around, find your community, and see within your jurisdictional boundary how many or if you have any of these disadvantaged tracts that's been identified using this tool. So we really recommend you look and see if you have any of these census tracts within your jurisdictional boundary before you decide to apply to make sure that you're eligible for the program. So the application process is two parts. Part one is complete the application through an online survey. So we'll share a survey tool link here in a little bit for you all to be able to apply, but this survey tool lets us know at what stage of planning your urban forest is in and how we can potentially help your community in this process. So don't think that you don't have any of these things, these questions. Let's say you don't have a tree board. Let's say you don't have a city arborist on staff. That's perfectly okay. The purpose and the intent of this program is to help communities build this capacity within their community. And so if you answer no to these questions, it's not like you're going to be penalized for not having certain parts of your urban forestry program in your community. The survey takes about 20 minutes to complete. There's 28 questions involved. Most of them are, or many of them are multiple choice or short text narratives that you can fill out. Completed online. So the survey is online, but you may also request a paper copy from GIC staff. We can send you a paper copy and then you can mail that back to us before the deadline so that we can make sure to log your results and make sure that you're part of the screening process. Staff will review your responses and contact you potentially for additional consultation if necessary. So if there's something that's maybe unclear about your application or we have additional questions for you, we may reach out to you individually just to get that further clarification. Your community may be selected for the program at no cost to your community. So there is no match requirement for this program as long as the planning and the tree planting are done within those disadvantaged neighborhoods in your community. So that's why it's really key. The intent of the Inflation Reduction Act was to prioritize these disadvantaged neighborhoods, and there is no match required as long as all of the tree plantings and the planning work are associated with these disadvantaged neighborhoods. So it's one of the few federal grant programs out there that do not have a requirement for a match, which is really nice. It creates a lower barrier for entry for communities that have a lot of need. Part 2 of it is the community selection. So after the application period closes, we will review the applications and 3 communities will be selected for the second cohort. If selected, your community representative will be asked to sign a letter of commitment stating that you agree to actively participate in the program. And this just lets us know that your city leadership or town leadership is on board and willing to prioritize this grant program. It is a multi-year grant program, and so we just want to make sure that that level of commitment is there by city or town leadership as well as other members of the municipal staff. So before you fill out your survey, there's kind of 6 things you need to have on hand before completing the application. And what this does is it allows you to be prepared to answer these questions in advance so that you're not having to stop the survey and go and seek out these answers or consult with other staff members to find the answers to these questions. And again, you're not penalized for not having any of these things. So the grant is, as a reminder, being provided to help communities get to a yes answer for items 1 through 5 in the future. So question 1, does your locality have a digital tree canopy coverage, map, or data? And if so, when was it created? Does your city have a public tree inventory? When was it collected and for which areas? So is it a partial tree inventory or is it a complete public tree inventory? Does your city have an urban forest management plan or an urban forest master plan? And if so, how old are these plans? When were they created? Are they currently outdated? Does your city have a storm mitigation plan? So how does your city respond to and mitigate from natural disasters such as tropical storms? Does your city employ an arborist? And if not, that's okay. You may have arborist on retainer or on contract, which is also good. So don't worry about if you don't have an arborist. But do you have a city? Does your community employ an arborist for helping with tree care? Does your city or town include those disadvantaged communities? So this is determined through that CGES tool. Follow that link. This is going to be able to help us understand who is eligible for the program. And that was kind of the intent of this IRA program, is to help those disadvantaged communities. So the application should only take about 20 minutes to fill out. There is the survey link. The application process is live. So feel free to fill out that application. The person filling it out should be authorized to complete it for their community to receive technical support, a grant, or other assistance. So you need to be someone who is authorized to apply for a grant on behalf of your community. So just make sure that you have that permission before you fill out the survey. How we will evaluate your request for assistance. So all applications will be scored according to this rubric. The greatest number of points comes from how many disadvantaged tracts are within your community. And you don't necessarily need to know the percentage of disadvantaged census tracts within your jurisdictional boundary. GIC and the Forestry Commission will evaluate this on our end, but we just need to know that you at least have one disadvantaged tract within your community. But the more disadvantaged neighborhoods or tracts within your community gives you a greater number of points. So again, really prioritizing communities in the most need for these types of services will receive the most points. Partners, if you already have identified partners that you plan to work with on this grant, or you already have existing relationships with community organizations around tree care, tree planting, and tree maintenance within your community, this could also be something like a tree board. we want to know who these partners are and provide examples of who they are. So specifically that you're working with a particular university or school, maybe civic groups, your tree board, or others, like a local nonprofit. Needs analysis. You can receive up to 6 points based on your community's needs for services. So those needs include those being provided by the program, such as you need a tree canopy map, or you don't really have currently a strategic tree canopy plan for your community. Those things will help you elevate your application as having greater need and thus much more competitive for this IRA grant program. So fill out those survey questions accurately and truthfully, because your answers on those will depend on how many points you receive for your application. And then intended outcomes. You can receive up to 5 points for articulating how you plan to use the results of the assistance for real community needs. In other words, do you plan to use the canopy map to update your comprehensive plan or to set a canopy goal? Or you have other projects and efforts going on in the community, such as a parks master plan, or you're interested in some streetscape redesign work. Those things are really beneficial for articulating how you're going to take the technical assistance that GIC will be providing and applying it to other areas of your current planning, both daily and long range planning practices. So articulate that as best you can and as much as you can to help strengthen your application and demonstrate that you have a lot of intended outcomes for participating in this program. So the types of services that you'll receive through the IRA Trees4SC, you'll receive a tree codes audit. So GIC staff will audit the municipal ordinances as well as other policies and practices within the community to determine whether they are supportive or protective of the community forest and open space, or maybe lead to practices that might increase canopy loss or increase imperviousness, which would reduce overall urban forestry health. So we'll do a deep dive into your codes and ordinances and kind of identify areas of improvement or updating that would better help with the long-term health of the urban forest. We will be doing some canopy mapping, so we will use remote sensing techniques to develop tree canopy maps and what we call plantable area maps to help establish a canopy goal. So these remote sensing techniques use 4 bands of imagery to do that analysis of your full land cover. And it'll also include identifying those open space areas for further planting. So we can tell how many trees can fit within your community, and we can identify where those trees potentially could go by different types of properties, such as this many trees could go at these schools, this many trees could go into these parks or along street right-of-ways, or even into private property. So we'll do a complete analysis of the canopy and identify what opportunities exist for increasing canopy within your community. Using that land cover data, we will also do some ecosystem benefits modeling, such as stormwater uptake that the tree canopy is providing for your community, how it can potentially mitigate urban heat island impacts, and quantify some of the things like air quality benefits that the tree canopy is providing for public health. The canopy map creates the data to calculate these benefits for your community that the trees are providing. And then kind of so all of this technical assistance here is part of that first phase of the citywide planning. All of that data will be fed into, along with your strategies and goals, into a strategic tree canopy plan. So we'll use those canopy maps and target those places where trees are most needed and establish those community goals. And this can include outreach and engagement strategies and graphics for education and engagement with the broader community. All of those things will go into a strategic tree canopy plan that's personalized for your community and can help drive implementation in that second phase going forward, but also can help define how you want to continue to grow and manage your urban forest for years to come. And you can leverage that plan for additional grant funding assistance, not only from the Forestry Commission, but other sources of funding at the state, federal, and through other foundations and grant sources. And then in that second phase, we would get into the tree planting in those disadvantaged neighborhoods. So working with the city committee at the city planning stage, we'll identify a select 1 or 2 disadvantaged neighborhoods to start doing implementation projects in. But before we start actually doing the tree plantings, we'll work with the residents in those neighborhoods to establish where their priorities are for tree plantings in their communities and do additional education and engagement around them on tree stewardship and how to properly care for and plant those trees so that we're making sure these trees stay alive and live for the long term and provide those benefits over time. So the first 3 communities that we're working with that were funded in 2024 are Darlington, Kershaw, and Lake City in the PD region. These 3 communities are kind of halfway through that city planning process, and we'll be working towards tree planting projects and community stewardships going into 2025. So we wanted to go ahead and launch now for the second cohort, and I'll talk about the timeline here in just a few minutes. But we want to go ahead and launch applications to start recruiting the second cohort now, so that as we go into 2025, we can start launching the citywide planning for our next 3 communities within the state. But Kershaw, Darlington, and Lake City were our first 3, and we've been having a lot of success working with those communities so far. So here's just some example products from those communities. These are some tree canopy maps and some plantable area maps for Lake City. So a community can create maps for existing canopy cover and where there's room to plant trees. So the one on the left shows the existing tree canopy distribution within Lake City. And then the map on the right kind of shows in orange places where additional tree canopy can be planted after we've already gone through a process of excluding areas where the underlying land use is not really compatible with tree planting. So you can see right here, they have an airport. We've excluded that as potential planting area because obviously we don't want to be landing a plane on the runway with a tree there that could potentially run into. So we've gone through with a local stakeholder group to exclude places where they don't think it's really appropriate to plant trees because of the underlying land use, such as athletic fields, golf courses, etc. And we'll work with the community to kind of help identify those locations, and we have a process to help you make those edits pretty seamlessly. Once we get this data, then we can start using it for other purposes, such as calculating the benefits, air quality, and stormwater uptake. We also use this data to help you set your goal, and we can help you identify potentially the potential costs of setting a goal and how many trees that would take and what are the financial implications for trying to plant a certain number of trees in your community. So these are PPA and land cover maps for Kershaw. Again, showing the land cover. That last one was showing tree canopy, but this one shows the full land cover for the town of Kershaw. So not only are you understanding where your tree canopy is, but you're also able to identify other types of land cover, such as where wetlands are, the amount of impervious surfaces, etc. That can be really valuable for other types of planning within your community. And then once we have that final data, we've gone through that editing process with the stakeholders, we can analyze it in various ways to kind of inform your goals and strategies in each community. So these are examples from Darlington. One of the things we looked at was the percentage of tree canopy within the 50 feet of road center lines. This can help us identify opportunities within streetscapes and right-of-ways for additional tree planting, identify low canopied streets that could have opportunities for more trees to be planted along them. Or we can look at things through each individual parcel within a community and kind of understand where there's maybe opportunities by different landowner types. So looking at city-owned property versus private property, but also breaking things down by different types of institutions, such as at school properties or within places like parks or green spaces. These are some maps from the city of Greenville. They are not currently in the IRA program, but we did support with Forestry Commission a tree planting campaign with them that used a lot of this same data. And so part of what we're going to be doing with Kershaw, Lake City, and Darlington, but we haven't gotten there yet. At this stage with the planning process is we will also be looking at those ecosystem services. But these are some examples from Greenville where we looked at average surface temperatures to identify kind of the hottest places within the city and where there are potential opportunities for greater tree canopy. So using that ecosystem service data to help understand and prioritize and strategize what areas we want to potentially green the city with. And we can use that census data to help us identify different types of populations within the community, such as low-income populations, to prioritize tree planting efforts in. You can also, part of the program will create that strategic tree canopy plan. Again, these are just some numbers from Greenville, but what you can see is we can identify every potential place where a tree, both large and small, can fit within the jurisdictional boundary. And this can help us identify and set those targets and goals for each community based on real data. So for example, in Greenville, they could fit almost 100,000 additional trees within their jurisdiction. It broke out to about 43,000, almost 44,000 large trees, which we define as a 40-foot diameter crown at maturity, and small trees, 20 feet diameter crown at maturity at almost 62,000 additional trees. So we can see by different types of tree classes where they can fit within the landscape, and we can use this data to be very strategic and identify things and use that data to inform a strategic tree canopy plan for your particular community. And then, of course, we're getting into in that second phase after the citywide planning or town planning process. We'll be selecting those disadvantaged neighborhoods, and we'll actually be planting physical trees in the ground. We have funding for the trees, so there is no going out and getting additional funding for trees to do the planting. We have the funds already. It comes as part of the process or the program, and we will work with the community stakeholders to identify those neighborhoods that have the most need based on that data. And these places can include parks, right-of-way, schools, and more. So there's a lot of opportunities and a lot of strategies that we can work with each community to develop. And we can also think about and consider what other grant funding sources are out there that we can help partner with that community to get additional funds if our current funding is not sufficient to help with that particular project. So the community will be organized to inform and help steward the trees in their neighborhood. So not only will be planting the trees with the community, we will also be doing some education and outreach to help them understand how to better care for their trees, better maintenance practices, making sure that those trees that are planted are watered and cared for so that they survive and get established to be healthy adult trees that are going to provide these benefits for generations to come. So if we look at the timeline going forward, application deadline is September 1st. The applications must be completed online by 5 o'clock, or we need to have received your application if you choose to do a paper application in the mail before this deadline as well. Once that application period closes, we will review all eligible applicants and score them. We may reach out for additional questions to clarify the survey results. And then in the fall of 2024, we will send out a notification of outcome. So all applicants will be formally notified of the outcome, whether they received the assistance or not. If you did not receive the assistance this year, you can always reapply next year. This IRA program is going to be running for an additional 2 years after this one, so in a total for 4. So we'll have 4 cohorts that will go through this system with 3 communities in each cohort. So there will still be additional opportunities to reapply. Or if you want to, you can also apply for that technical assistance from the South Carolina Forestry Commission and GIC. That application period again opens up in October of this year. It goes through a similar process in that there is an online application. It's a quick, relatively easy process to fill out as well. So we highly encourage folks who did not get selected this year to either reapply next year or to try and get some of that technical assistance through the tech support program. Once your communities have been notified that they've been selected into the IRA program for the second cohort, you will need to draft up letters to be sent. We will draft up letters to be sent to those communities that have been selected for participation. These letters then need to be signed by city leadership, such as your city manager or your mayor, and returned within 20 days of receipt. So we want to make sure that communities are on board and excited and ready to participate in this type of programming. And then we'll actually begin the project in early 2025. So sometime in January, we'll be reaching out to each of the communities to establish those stakeholder committees to do that citywide planning. We'll work with you all to develop press releases on announcing the projects within your community. And we'll start holding those kickoff meetings with the stakeholders to let them know and to inform them what the process is going to look like, what technical assistance we are going to be offering, kind of the scope of the IRA program in general. And then in the spring and summer, we'll start that citywide planning of the urban forest. So we'll begin mapping that tree canopy and potential planting areas for your community. We'll make edits to those data with the stakeholders. We'll start doing that code audit research. We'll model those ecosystem services and do that further canopy analysis. And we'll start engaging the broader community around this project to prepare them for that second phase. After the citywide planning, we'll be doing the implementation and tree planting in specific neighborhoods within the city or town. So if you're interested in getting help for your community, you could have different types of goals, such as wanting to keep your community cooler, better prepared for storms. This process will help you create realistic goals and budgets. So if you're interested in helping to understand what are the urban forest budgets necessary for managing and sustaining your tree canopy, we can also help your community become more resilient to things like climate change. Or if you have an interest in getting your communities to be healthier and more equitable in terms of these types of ecosystem services that green spaces provide within your communities, this is the right program for you. And so we really recommend that you complete your application by September 1st. And again, here is that link to the SurveyMonkey that allows you to apply. Make sure, again, that you have that information, those kind of 6 things you need to know before you start your application, and that you are an eligible community and you have authorization to apply on behalf of your city or town or tribe. So for additional information about this program, if there's something that we did not cover or we're not able to answer your question when we get to the question answer period here in just a second, feel free to reach out to Marcia Potter or Tom Knowles. There's their contact information again. They can provide you some more additional information about the program. Or if you're interested in receiving that paper application, reach out to them and they can make sure that you get a paper copy so that you can complete that via paper. So that is the information that we have for the webinar today about how to apply for the IRA program. I'm going to pause here and turn it over to Karen to see if we have any questions from participants.
Yes, Matt, we did have some questions in the question thread. I did answer them all, and I'll review what those answers were because there are probably some other people with the same questions. But before I do that, I just want to put it out to everyone. If anyone wants to ask a live question, if there's anyone that wants to ask a question with their voice instead of typing, please use the raised hand feature, and I can then unmute you. The raised hand feature is down on the bottom left of your screen. All right, so while people are thinking about what their question might be, if they want to speak it, I'll go through some of the questions in the panel. I did answer them. Now there's some new ones in here. Okay. One question was, does a hazard mitigation plan approved by FEMA count as a disaster plan or hazard mitigation plan? I told them it depends because some disaster plans still don't mention trees, which is hard to believe, but because they're the largest piece of debris in a lot of disasters when you have tree debris down. So check that plan and see what it says about trees. Another question was, can we get a recording? And yes, to remind everyone, you will get a copy of the slides themselves, and the recording will take about 24 hours to render, and we'll then send that as well. And then someone else asked if their community is too small to be eligible for this grant. Is there other funding available? I reminded them, yes, there is. And you are also covering that in the presentation, that we have technical support. So that wouldn't be the sort of the full program we're offering here, but you could get a canopy map, for example, or you could get help with setting a goal for your community. All right, then another question.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
And one thing about that too is that with the technical support program, you can also reapply. So let's say you applied this fall for a canopy map and you receive that assistance and you go through the technical support program and you come back the next year and you want to reapply for a codes audit or modeling of your ecosystem services. We encourage communities to come back for additional support year after year for the tech support program. That program is kind of meant to help communities stepwise and build that capacity over time. So definitely take advantage of reapplying multiple times for that program year after year too.
Yes, that's perfect. And just to let everyone know, part of the reason that we have the population limit of being at least community of at least 5,000 folks is because we need your community to be large enough to have the capacity to participate, because there's a lot of pieces to the project, including creating plans and editing maps and working with us on tree planting. So we just need to make sure that your community is large enough to participate in this program, Trees4SC. But as Matt said, yes, we do have a smaller program where you can kind of do things in pieces, and that is also easier for a small community like Atlantic Beach. They asked about that. So, anyone else want to post a question in the question panel? Don't see any new ones yet. So I'll go to the people and see if anyone has raised their hand. And as Matt said too, you're welcome to contact the staff if you just want to send a longer follow-up later and you hate typing in little boxes. Okay, I'm not seeing any hands raised. So with that, I think that we have addressed all the questions in the panel. Got a couple of thank yous. And we will look forward to sharing all this information with you. And as we said, since this will be recorded, if you have someone else you want to tell, or your sister city that you want to share this with, or your friend in another town, definitely let them know about this program. Everyone has at least 6 weeks now, I think, to apply. So just get it in by the end of August. And the application, as Matt said, is really easy. It's clicking a bunch of buttons in a survey. It doesn't take more than 20 minutes. So if you've got 20 minutes, it's the easiest grant support to ever get. And just a reminder, this is technical support and planting support. No money changes hands, so there's no financial management that you need to worry about. Matt or Francis, did we want to add anything else as we wrap up this webinar?
I think that about covers it. And, if anybody has any questions, of course, they can email us. So thank you.
Exactly. We look forward to getting some applications from folks, and we're excited to be starting the second year of this program. So we look forward to hopefully seeing your application soon.
Great. All right. Thanks, everyone, for participating, and spread the word. Let's get some more trees in the ground. All right. Have a great day. Bye-bye.